This episode of the Pistonhead podcast has been brought to you by Quick Latch, manufacturers of quality push-button release hood pins and multi-purpose fasteners. Incorporating Quick Latch hood pins into your project car will allow you to no longer worry about reinstalling hitch pins or lanyards that'll scratch your paint from hood pin applications. Incorporating the universal mini Quick Latches into your build brings a wide variety of potential fastening applications, including bumper quick releases, interior glove boxes and access panels, engine covers, fuel filler lid latches, rear seat fold-down latches, ECU mounts, and more. They're also a good alternative to traditional quarter-turn fasteners that require the use of a tool to engage and disengage. You can check them out at www.quick-latch.com. That's www.quick-latch.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the Pistonhead podcast. On this week's episode, we sit down with Bryan Young, also known Big Balls Bryan, 8-Bit Bryan, and we start off part one of our Longbeach Formula Drift breakdown. We talk about the race in general. We talk about qualifying and top 32, and then on an episode that'll be coming up shortly, we'll get into part two of all this. So where we get into the top 16, the grade 8, top 4, and of course the final battle. So if you guys watch Longbeach, make sure to listen to this to get all of our notes and our breakdown on everything that happened. If you haven't watched Longbeach yet, I recommend at least getting to through the top 32. Come back, listen to this, or maybe you can even listen to it while you're watching it. But enjoy the podcast. This is a great time chatting with Bryan. So yeah, what did you I figured we'll start off by just talking about top 32. What did you think of qualifying? Did you notice anything in practice, anything in media day that was going to come up later on, or?
I wasn't able to catch much with what happened with media day but media day or practice. I didn't see anything, other than what people live streamed a little bit here and there. Lorette Nick, she went around and interviewed a few people. That's about the most I got from pre-qualifying.
Yeah, because I think, for all that stuff, the only two major things were we were missing two drivers, Dean Carney, engine. That, in my mind, wasn't a big surprise considering how tight things were getting near the end of his build anyways, if you were following him on media. Yeah. And then, who was it with the Cadillac?
Tyler Hall.
Tyler Hall. I'm not sure what happened there, but obviously something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a smart move to hold off and not rush, especially to something like Longbeach. It's that if your car is not 100% dialed in, you don't go to Longbeach. I mean, if you have any doubt, it seems to be like the smart plan on his part.
Yeah, well, and speaking of which, I would say this year in particular, I saw the least dialed in cars I've seen in a long time. Not to kind of start things off negatively, but it definitely looked like there were a lot of guys that were still in the testing phase. A lot of guys admitted they were still in the testing phase, which I think is something we're getting used to with Longbeach, which sucks because I would almost like to see this track maybe mid or late season because of how technical it is. But that's what I noticed. There's a lot of sloppy setups, a lot of changes made between qualifying and tandem. But that was just what I saw.
I wonder if that has something to do with the limited amount of practice they were allowed before going into qualifying as well.
Yeah, that could be it. I think a lot of these guys went into the mentality of every other Longbeach where, hey, we can take 30, 40 runs. We can go till the tires go. As opposed to this year where it's like they're capped at their 12. Now, that being said, too, for anybody who's like, oh, well, they just found out, not really. Most of the drivers knew about that months before it was ever announced.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's true. But I think it does does contribute to like the guys with newer cars and having a little bit of difficulty shaking it down before qualifying.
Yeah, for sure.
In particular, the one standout thing that I was just like really kind of like made me hold my breath was seeing Matt Field spin out right after the first clipping point, and I was just like, oh my God, no. And he kept it off the wall, and he never did anything worse than that. It wasn't like a consistent problem. I think he knew what he needed to do right after that spin out, so he got a free pass on Longbeach. He just barely dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that, I guess we can go right into qualifying. Any surprises in your mind on that one as to guys? The big one for me was Dirk Stratton qualifying ahead of Von Gittin Jr. That says to me that this kid is ready to go. Anybody who doubted his ability before Long Beach, I think that's all been quelled just with qualifying.
I find it hard to really see how anybody could doubt his ability to begin with, just because of how well he performed. He is a rocket ship in that Corvette. He's really got that feel for that car so well now from driving it for so long that it's honestly, I'm not surprised. Expectation for him to do well was reasonable to have, and he's proving that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's going to be a standout driver to watch for the Rookie of the Year competition this year, which I really like seeing guys who come up from Pro-Am, Pro-2, and local guy that's just making it. He's coming from a place that's giving him a lot of support and the ability to really maximize his assets into specifically drifting, and he's doing that, and he's making it work. So yeah, hats off to him, and I hope that this is a continuation for each round for him to be able to make it into the top 16.
I'll also kind of pay kudos as well to Nick Swan mentoring him and kind of, I don't know if he forced him, but ultimately deciding to do another year Pro 2 before jumping up. I think that shows for sure. Because he had two. Yeah, he had 2 years that he qualified for Pro 1, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that decision to stick around for another year.
Sorry, I'm going to backtrack that. He did not make it to the top 16. He was in top 32. He just qualified the highest.
Yes.
He got kicked out in top 32 by JR.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, actually, he took himself out, but it's still even with the crash. I mean, he got something that a lot of the pro drivers have, that notch on their belt as well, of having contacted the wall at Long Beach. It seems like it's like one of those things where if you had a good crash in Long Beach, that's just a part of being a pro driver in FD. It seems like
it's a rite of passage for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Rite of passage, exactly. So he's got that. I think that sometimes it seems like drivers who get a hit, all of a sudden it's just like their brain just goes bzz, and just knows exactly what they need to do every time after that. And I really wish we could have seen him drive more that day, because I guarantee he would have been on fire for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. I definitely think he had a chance to take a Vaughn in the top 32 as well, if it wasn't for that crash. Outside of that, I think everybody qualified pretty much in a place that you would expect them to. Peter, James, Forrest, JT. Well, I guess JTP qualifying 4th overall, that was big. It's nice to see him. A lot of guys talk in the off season about how they're going to change things and how they're going to do things. This is definitely a guy who showed that by coming out with a much looser style. Just seemed to be having a lot more fun with it than he has in years past.
Yeah, he's just living his dream right now, and he's just going to ride this as long as he can. And it's awesome to see a driver of his talent not only being humble, but also still being determined. He's going to win no matter what, but he's that perfect balance of somebody who's having a lot of fun with competition. When they say like keep drifting fun, he's doing that. He's keeping drifting fun in that competition environment, and I don't think anybody could really dispute that.
No, that's for sure. Outside of that, I think everybody stacked up kind of the way that how they would. We already talked about Dirk Stratton, but just to kind of reiterate as well, he qualified higher than Von Gittin, higher than Michael Essa. A lot of these guys that have had way more time. It was nice to see some of the guys who came up from Pro 2 do half decent. Kevin Lawrence obviously being the main struggle there. Farouk kind of finally showing that BMW can do something. There was a lot of doubt in everybody's mind after Irwindale as to whether or not, he was really a contender, but I think he kind of showed this one. He's back in the saddle. He's ready to go.
You meaning Blues in the BMW?
Oh, no. Farouk. Didn't Farouk bring it out at Irwindale?
I can't remember.
I'm almost sure he did, and it just did not look good. Like he straightened out halfway through. But
Okay.
well, yeah, Kristaps as well. Obviously, that's
That's what made me confused because
yeah. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't remember Farouk's performance in Irwindale, but watching him in Long Beach, same thing with him. I mean, he kept it off the wall, and it looked like he could have used just a little more practice to have that car 100% dialed in.
Yeah.
But he did a good job. He battled the best he could with what he had.
Yeah. And then outside of that, I don't think there was too much else. Everything kind of fell in. So, maybe we can kind of get into the 32 now. Obviously, Piotr, however you pronounce it, and James getting their buy runs. It was nice to only see 2 buy runs at this event.
Yeah, and both of them got it.
yeah, for sure. That puts us into Forrest Wang and Kazuya. Oh man, Taguchi. I know I screwed that one up. Forrest Wang killing it that year off did not affect him in any way.
Right. Forrest had he also had some events that he was able to do some practicing with. I think with a different car, but he always been keeping behind the wheel. Mm-hmm. He never really wasn't driving that much. So even with some changes in the car, just from what little I got from Garrett about what Forrest has been up to, it just falls right into place. Forrest is just that he has that adaptability that is super keen, that even changes on his car, whatever they may be, even if it catches it by surprise, he seems to just make it work. So that's really what a lot of people see, that similarity in Dean, looking like when Dean is very adaptable with a bunch of different setups, but when he gets his optimal setup, we saw what happened last year.
Yeah.
So now Forrest is back into the game, but geared more towards a build that is more competition specific and not just more for too much for show. You know what I mean? And he's a good showman, and even with his setup currently, he still puts on a great show. But now he's really trying to run for the first place, and I'm glad to see that, because he has the ability to be a champion. He has pretty much everything is in place for him to do that. It's just him getting a car set up that he can drive and put into that podium position.
Yeah, and I would say, just from a perspective on the mechanical side, they talked about they went to a smaller turbo. It's a little bit more responsive, which is good. It also looks like it wasn't as loose. It was tightened up a lot, and they've also looks like they've raised the car at least 2 inches from last season. So that's going to be huge. As much as I love that slammed look, it wasn't functional and it caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, and that's true. Nick Dizon, when he started helping Forrest with his FD campaign, he had a lot to do with kind of like just changing the game for him to be armed properly this time.
Yeah,
with what he needs in his car to do as well as he did that we saw. I think that had Forrest ran the exact same thing he ran the last year he competed in FD, he would not have done it this good.
No, I completely agree. It would have been definitely a different day. That's for sure.
Yeah.
On the side of Kazuya, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Taguchi, that looked like somebody who was incredibly nervous, who was in a car that they did not have a lot of seat time with, in an environment that they were completely unfamiliar with.
Yeah, that's just what it was to me. It looked like he was just trying to really keep it off the wall and just make the car survive this round. And if the car got dialed in, it got dialed in. He would make it work. But if it wasn't, he was just going to work with what he got, just get through the battles and go into the next round. And probably between now and then, hopefully he gets a little more time with the car to get it more dialed in for his driving style and be a little more consistent and smooth. Because it just seems like he's just coming off throttle. It seems like he just wants to grip up a ton, and it's really hard to just feel that natural slide. And I wonder if it's just what he's used to feeling in the cars he's competed in the past. This is such a dramatic change that the behavior, his natural reaction to a behavior of the car is not giving that to him. So he's constantly having to catch himself to react sooner or quicker to keep the car moving forward faster. And so that bobbling, I feel, is the cause of that.
Yeah, it's also a great testament to how amazing of a driver Robbie Nishida was. We see the difference, the same chassis. Obviously, there's going to be different setups, but it shows how good of a driver he was.
Absolutely, yeah. I really liked Robbie's driving.
Oh, I know. It sucks. I'm happy where he is. He looked good on camera. I looked a little stiff, but I think he'll come around.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. JTP, Cameron Moore. I was really rooting for Cameron on this one. We had him on the podcast not that long ago.
Yeah.
So that would have been, I was really hoping. But obviously was it in qualifying he crashed, I believe?
I think he crashed before that.
Was it?
When Corey was live streaming the Maximum Drift cast in the pits, I could have sworn that when Cameron Moore's car went by, it was already missing its rear bumper. Like he backed it. He ended up backing it into a wall or something. And so he was struggling with mechanical difficulties before qualifying even started after that hit, I bet. So he did the best he could, I'm sure, with what the cards that were handed to him. And I can't remember. I don't think he crashed again. No, he didn't crash again, not even in top 32. He just struggled to try to stay on par with JTP, who was
on fire.
He was on fire. I was starting to see a possibility of him really making it all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fun fact too, Cameron Moore's car, that is not a wrap. That is all painted, all those panels, which is something that not a lot of guys do.
No. If anybody knows, Paco knows, you don't paint a car because that's a recipe for having it crashed. So.
Yeah, that's the curse.
Yep.
that is the curse. I have high hopes for Cameron Moore. I really hope that maybe he can qualify a bit higher in the next round, get a little bit easier of a top 32, and then I'd like to see what he can do if he makes into the grade 8 and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's able to drive the car after his battle is over, so that's a good sign that they'll just have a little bit of time they need to get it back to par and keep working on dialing it in.
The other thing too, it's only his second season on that chassis. So I think a lot of people have to remember that as well. It takes a long time. Although if you're Frederick Osbo, who we're into on the next round here, you can just jump into whatever and make it look awesome. So that leads us on to Frederick Osbo versus Matt Van Kirk. That's sending someone to the slaughterhouse, hitting up Osbo in the top 32. So I think Matt did his best, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, I was really rooting for Van Kirk. I mean, I wanted to see like the 1-2-3 kid kind of upset. Just out of nowhere kind of thing. He's a Forza guy too, so I believe he is. Yeah, I know he messes with Fanatec wheels. He's big into sim drifting as well. But yeah, so I was kind of really rooting for him. Just wanted to see him do really well, or at least put on a really good show. And he bobbled a little bit. I think it is a lot of these drivers coming as rookies, their first Pro 1 round. I want to say that it's the butterflies more than the car as this overshadowing everything and how their performance is done. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never got to speak to them directly, but it's just it's only natural to feel that way, and it kind of shows a little bit in the driving with some people. Or maybe it was just setup. I don't know. We'd have to get the full story from Van Kirk on what he was dealing with in running Long Beach.
Yeah, for sure.
It just seemed like we've seen better performances from him.
Yeah,
that's why I'm like wondering if something else is going on.
It could be a head game, and I think you're right on that. Speaking with, I was texting with Riley Sexsmith during the entire event. Well, most of the event, and I said to him, like, "Are you taking notes?" He goes, "Yeah, I just have to get a lot better." And I was like, "Oh, come on!" But that being in the stands there, I think you realize what it's actually like when you show up. And I think I'm curious how many of the Pro 2 guys haven't been to like Long Beach at the Pro 1 event. Like obviously they're sitting there spectating, but I think it's important to be able to be there as a spectator, to be there in the pits before you go and do it, to really comprehend what that's like.
Yeah, it helps break the ice on the whole thing, especially being a driver, like a Pro 2 driver. Say he was in Pro 2 still and came to Long Beach. he would have a better chance to have ask some other Pro 1 drivers questions and learn a little bit more about the whole event and how it goes down. It definitely, I think, for any driver who's in Pro 2 looking to take Pro 1 seriously, making that time to try to attend Pro 1 events outside of the 4 that they're normally competing in, it gives them that little bit more. Definitely does.
No, it's definitely good for the mental game. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So then we're on to Chris Forsberg and Kevin Lawrence.
That guy, poor guy.
Oh, dude. I commented on his Facebook page right before. What was he? It was after the qualifying, and all I said is, "Hey, man, keep your head up. This is how stories are made." And I was really hoping that it would have turned out different for him. But Chris was driving extremely well. It looks like he's got that car sorted. I kind of missed the anti-lag setup, but from what it sounds like, and he's doing it in a very graceful way. Because Chris is a great businessman. It sounded like when he was working with Nameless Performance, they overcomplicated the system. Instead of trying to just go, hey, let's get a better turbo, they were trying to band-aid it with crazy anti-lag for show and stuff. And it sounded like that was half of the issues, one with why they didn't have the V8 in there right away and why he had so many problems later on down the road.
Yeah, I remember he ran the V8 Long Beach last year too.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't until I think it was the following round or maybe the round after that.
I think he did 2 events with the V8. Yeah.
Yeah. Which was, smart of him to have that as a backup ready to go.
Yeah.
But this time, I mean, watching him go, it's almost like he was it looked easy.
Yeah.
It looked like he was just out there, he was on the right amount of throttle. He swung at all the points he needed to hit, stayed on the gas in all the places he needed to, and just finished the course. It was just, whoop, 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 whoop. He's done. You're just almost like in a blink. You're like, wow, he just completely went through that whole thing and you almost didn't even realize it. But he's just was on point everywhere he needed to be at. So yeah, Chris looked super smooth and definitely was going to hit all the points he needed to hit to get the judges' attention and points.
Yeah, he knows the system. He knows the game. He's been around long enough that he knows exactly what he has to do to be. Yeah. He's as conservative as he needs to be and aggressive as he needs to be given the situation.
Yeah, and it's really visible when he's between the two. You really can see the difference before when he really turns it up to where he's just dialed it in just enough to do qualifying and then dialing up a little bit more depending on who he's up against in competition. And how he behaved with Kevin, he made a lot of, you could tell on the initiation that he was just keeping the right amount of distance to stay close to have that qualifying proximity
to be active,
far enough to be active, right, and not be on his door so much that if Kevin had another issue with the car, it would be a collision. He was just being really smart with the distance, but he didn't let Kevin walk away from him or let them split up so much where it's like this. We see this in years in the past where somebody will just give this ridiculous gap because they're just, I have this in the bag kind of thing. Chris didn't do that. He did it the right amount that kept the show really good and gave Kevin the opportunity to really shine as well.
Yeah, it's a proper send-off. I think he knew Kevin was kind of already beat and was like, you know what, I'm not going to embarrass him. I'm not going to mock him by keeping a large gap. I'm going to tandem with him the way I would no matter how he was driving.
Yeah. Chris is super quick too. I mean, if anything started going wonky with Kevin's car, Chris's car is set up to be really responsive and come to a stop really quick.
Yeah.
When he sees it coming. So that's why I think he really just kept a sharp eye on his car's behavior while staying as close as possible. And that's a real, it's a skill that you really only that level of pro you can really master to have that comfort level with what Kevin was going through with his car. Because I guarantee you, Kevin's doing everything he can to not let that happen again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it went great. Everything went smooth. It was really awesome to see how that exchange went down and Kevin was able to at least finish the battle.
Yeah, no, it was definitely good. So I guess we're up. Matt Field versus Jeff Jones. I will say Matt figured something out between qualifying run and qualifying run 2. And whatever he figured out, he carried on into that battle as well. That Corvette, who did I talk to about this? I want to say Kevin Lawrence. Not Kevin Lawrence. Ryan Lontang. I believe I chatted with him about it. there has to be something physics wise with those Corvettes and drifting, because you have a large mass spinning underneath the car at full RPM. It's not drive shaft only spins a certain RPM. Those, what the hell is the name of that drive shaft thingy?
Torque tube.
Torque tube.
Yeah.
There's got to be some gyroscope effect going on with those cars, because those Corvettes pivot in a very unique way.
Yeah.
It's very strange. I don't know how to explain it. I'd have to put like a side by side, but like you see how an S13 pivots kind of right between the driver and the passenger.
On the build, yeah.
Yeah, the Corvette seems to it kind of where it pivots almost changes. It's really weird. I don't know how to explain it. I'd have to show it in a video. It looks like it pivots from the nose upon initiation, and then it kind of that pivoting point almost slides back in the car. And
I see that.
You know what I mean? As it kind of gets its rate to angle is like an exponential curve as opposed to like a very snappy one. So I think that was what Matt tried to get figured out. And I definitely think he did. Although Jeff Jones on any other day, I that's another guy I want to keep my eye on this year.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, he had they both seemed, I don't know if it was just Matt following Jeff and he was just working hard to keep it smooth, and Jeff looked like he was working hard to keep it smooth as well. Mm-hmm. In the overall picture of what was being asked of them. And they're both brand new cars for both of them. So they're both trying to keep it on the point, keep it straight, and their professional background, again, shined here because they were still able to put on a good show, even with two new cars, and that they were still trying to figure out how to dial in. So they both had their little tit for tat bobbles, but it wasn't bad though. I mean, they were still moving forward. They were still hitting their points as much as possible, and kept it going. But Matt he just had a little bit more into his runs than Jeff did, and went on.
Yeah. I think Jeff still has a little bit of figuring to do, whereas Matt is reeling in that last 20% he was talking about.
Yeah, and knowing Jeff, I mean, he's gonna be cracking on that car really good to make sure that he gets that stuff dialed in for the next round. He's gonna get better and better with every round for sure.
Mm-hmm. Ryan Turk, Austin Meeks. Ryan's starting to come back to form. It looks like getting comfortable in that car. I don't know. That dude just seems to kind of put himself out or gets really crappy pairings. But Austin also another guy that didn't quite look like he was ready for the big leagues yet. Just not confident, shaky. I mean, I bet you if you were to check his heart rate in the car, it'd be through the roof.
He looked like he was stressing. And in a way that he was trying to use in a positive direction, because that crash really banged up that car pretty good.
Yeah,
that he had earlier in the day, and then he didn't let it stop him. He wanted to keep going and put on a good show. I don't know what his experience is. Maybe he's not shaken up by crashes, but he definitely looked like again, it was one of those situations where he got a crash, was able to come out of it, and he looked like he was doing everything he can to be on fire, and he did that. He put on a really, really solid effort against Ryan, and Ryan, like you said, like his best run of the starting that day was in the top 32. Like watching him in qualifying, it was a big difference to see him in top 32, which I think is definitely could be suspension setup or something that they set up changed wise for competition compared to qualifying, and it was very obvious with Ryan's car that I noticed. So his car became a lot more aggressive, threw in a lot more angle. But yeah, he definitely looked like he was making, like the same way Chris was handling, who was Chris up against? Kevin Lawrence. I felt like Ryan was doing the same thing, that same amount of reservation in his driving in the chase, and still keeping it to where he's in the dominant part of that battle by the end of the run.
I'm curious if that skill set comes from driving at events like Grid Life, where you may be tandeming with guys that are not on a pro level more often, so they're able to handle that. I'm trying to think of a good way to explain it. It'd be like a pro football player not giving it, like playing pickup every once in a while and knowing what style they need to bring out. How much effort do they need to bring out?
Yeah, and to still make it good, and I know what you're saying. There's a natural ability of dialing in based on the environment you're in.
Yeah,
and without having to be on full tilt all the time or trying to back off way too much where it's way obvious. They just know how to match a level of the driver they're up against and stay close enough and safe enough in case something happens. When they feel uncertain, I guarantee you these two, as far as I know, these two guys never drifted together before. And now here they are in Long Beach having to pair up. So that's definitely is what is expected of a professional driver, and especially being seasoned as Ryan is. Anything less than that, I think, would be a disservice to himself.
So after that, we had Daya Shahara versus Kyle Mohan. I love Kyle Mohan. I've never met the man, but I have the biggest soft spot for that dude. And every time he goes out, I'm just like, this is it. This is going to be the time. And there's always something that happens.
Yeah, man. I get it. I get the Miata. I understand that part of it. But I don't know if it's the sponsorships are asking him to stay in that Miata, or if he's just choosing to be in that Miata and kind of take the reins from Danny George and what a Pro 1 level Miata can do.
Yeah, but it's not really doing it justice, unfortunately.
Yeah, really. It's like Kyle is we've seen him years ago when he was like in the RX-8 and the the FC before that.
Yeah.
He has the ability. He has that support program for making a high performance rotary powered drift car. And why is it on this Miata? I don't know. The car is cool. I love the ND Miatas, but it's just something about what he put together on there. Is like he's doing a lot of compensation for the limitations of the chassis. Just and it's physically obvious from the insane wide track in the front, the way the car behaves.
Yeah.
And now here's the thing. I actually was just like, oh my God, I think he got it when he was chasing Dye, and then he does that right in the hairpin. He just loses it. And I was just like, oh man, I was really, 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 really hoping that Kyle would have this car dialed in by now. And it just seems like it's just not there yet. And I wonder if Mad Mike maybe had some similar issues with the Miata he had, because it's the same chassis.
It looks very similar. And that says to me as well that it may be a chassis limitation, that it doesn't matter the budget or the driver, it cannot be overcome. Mad Mike has all the money in the world. He has all the support in the world. He could build the craziest rotary. He could have the most amazing designers and specialists and testing time. And the dude puts in more seat time than almost any drifter in the world. And he had problems with it. So
just stick that 3 rotor in an FC and start kicking some ass. I mean, really, it's long overdue, Kyle. Come on.
Or find a way or put that body kit on an FC. Something, something like make it look like a Miata, but it's an FDRX7 underneath. I don't care.
Yeah. Like a Miata that hit the gym for all last year, it's just a little bigger.
Yeah. Maybe he's holding out for like the new Mazda RX-9 or whatever they can end up calling it.
Oh man, that would be so awesome if he gets set up with that.
Yeah. That might be the fix. Yeah. Daya Shahara looked good, looked back to form. Kind of like 2017 was a bit of a rough season for him. This reminds me of a younger Dye as opposed to the conservative one he's been in the past. So, Dye
has, it's like
people forget he's a champion.
That's just it. It's like Dye seems like, he has this reservation a little bit because of the car. And we never, I can't say never. We started seeing a lot more of the old Dye last year. But it's coming back from all I can't remember if he said he'd driven much at all since Irwindale last year, but he comes back into form with this year, and you can see where that's creeping back in. They're just getting that car back into place again, and his driving is just feeling less thinking and more reflex. And as we saw him move on through the day, that definitely seemed like the case. It's just a little bit of like shaking off the cobwebs and place good. He's just his natural talent that he's just built for himself is putting him in good places, while he knows that there's more things that he could do to push himself further, or push the car further. And I just don't think we've seen a full on, competition 100% dialed in die yet.
Yeah. I wouldn't blame the chassis.
To see that. Yeah, I'm really hoping to see that this year, because that chassis, the setup that they have is a championship worthy car.
Yeah.
It's just they're just cranking away little by little, year by year, in getting that thing perfected. I think it could V8 FRSs, BRZs. I see could be a trend if there's a system that's being discovered that is actually really, really working consistently well.
Yeah, and Mike Kojima is quite possibly one of the greatest crew chiefs in FD history. Papadakis might take the reign for most creative and most insane, but I would say out of pure ingenuity on keeping vehicles reliable, I would give that to Mike Kojima. If you watch, if you dig into all of his, what is it, Moto IQ is his channel?
Oh, yeah.
Man. The shit he gets into, he's like, yeah, we put this here because now I can change out an entire cooling system in 2 minutes. I'm like, that's nuts. Like how he spaces. It's just, the dude's just, he's just untapped knowledge. It's incredible. So I don't think the chassis by any means is the problem. I do think that Dai just either needs more seat time or just needs to relax, because he definitely seems way too tight.
Yeah, and let's just hope that his head. He's got his. I saw his visor's back. He's letting his hair out. That's a positive sign of we're going to see the old Dai back. So I'm feeling very optimistic about his performance over the rounds to come, because I mean nothing's determined by the first round, and we've seen so many changes happen from the years in the past coming out of Long Beach. Long Beach is this chaotic, kickoff. And then we start seeing things really playing out to start getting a better idea of who's breaking out as becoming the real contenders for the championship by the second or third round.
For sure. Speaking of real contenders, Alec Honadale and Farouk. Super pumped to see Alec driving the way he's driving. Huddy Racing obviously can build a phenomenal car. We know that from the 458 Italia, or the GT86 457 the FRS with the Ferrari engine. Obviously, they built that. Looks like they've done good things with the Alex car. I think just a bit more time. He's a young dude. He's ballsy as hell. Comes from a background of jet ski racing. Which I was noticing, it's kind of a trend to see drifting guys either coming from some other motorsport that is not car related. Like, there's a lot of ex motocross guys.
Sports,
So
and I think it's a natural attraction to come into drifting. Guys who've come from other like skating, BMX, jet skis,
motocross,
all of them. There's definitely the attraction is there to drifting. And bringing in that base that they've come out of, with not only having competition experience already, but now going into a new sport with it. I think that's why they advance so fast. It's not really much of a head game at all for them. They've been through this pressure before. They know what to deal with. They understand how to execute time management under stressful situations in high demand. So them being on par is just, we see it, and the results speak for themselves. And Alec definitely was on the mark. He took what he had with his car and he did really good with it. It was on fire. It was smoking everywhere. And he hit all the points he needed to hit. And I feel like that he could do more. But again, this goes back into new car build and coming into Long Beach. You can't. It asks a lot of somebody to really try to maximize that more in an area surrounded by walls. Because if you're not 100% certain on the limitations, and maybe he was one to do that, and they were trying to get him to hold back. That's not unheard of for teams to kind of say get drivers to look, just get to that high percent and then dial it back a notch, and you're going to be great. And I wonder if that was maybe a part of the thing here, where Alec couldn't really unleash himself as much as he wanted to, just to maintain his path where when his time comes to win, or if he ends up getting kicked out, the car doesn't need to have much done to it at all after that, and they can continue practicing and expanding what they know about the car.
Yeah, once you find that setup, just work with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't surprised by that win at all. Once we kind of talked about Farouk already, some of the issues that he's got there. Okay, so moving into the most exciting moment of the day, Chelsea Denofa versus Federico Scarifo. Wow.
Oh man. Okay, so watching this, I already saw that shit was going to go south just as after left the line, and I saw Federico was just too close.
Yeah,
he was on the wrong side of the course coming into the first initiation, and I was like, this is not a driver you want to do that with, Federico.
No,
you just learned what Chelsea Denofa is about, and Chelsea will aim and shoot, and you better be where you're supposed to be, or you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Now, here's the thing. That impact is what caused that component in his left front steering or his knuckle or something like that to fracture.
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
And that wasn't noticed by him.
No.
Now, for an impact like that, you think that they would inspect the car, inspect the damage, make sure everything is good before moving on. And like they had all this time to be able to take off all these loose parts that came off of Denofa's car so he could go back to the line. Where was Federico allowed to look at his car at all?
I was just going to ask that.
He was good. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they are, because if he doesn't call the timeout, is he allowed to inspect his car? That's not something I'm sure of.
That's what I want to know. I don't know. I can't give an answer on that. I want to assume that he is, because he was involved in an accident and they don't want him to go back out there. They're saying, "Oh, you got hit. You have to stay. I don't care." And Federico's probably like, "Oh, it feels fine. It feels fine. I think I'm okay."
Yeah.
Who knows? He might have said that. He might have actually checked the car and they just didn't see that. They thought they probably just had some body damage. I don't know. It's that part I haven't I don't have any word on what happened with Federico during that time that Chelsea was getting his car ready in his 10-minute break.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back out into the line again, they obviously, I think they chalked him up as a 0-0.
Yes.
In that first half, and they were going to judge the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So Federico leads. And you could see it right when he was trying to turn that left front wheel, starts doing that wobble, and he just shot straight off camera. Then we saw the fire start, and Federico just barely getting out between hit the door and the body of the car because of how he was so close to the wall.
Yeah.
Now these cars I think by rules they are required to have that halon type of system for controlling fire in the engine bay, or to try to extinguish fire in the engine bay. And
it's got to be. It's in the engine bay and over the tank, I believe. And I couldn't find anything definitive as to where I know the pull cord has to be within the driver compartment, within reach of the driver, but I don't know if there has to be a secondary one. But I could see a rule change coming soon that says that there has to be one accessible from the outside of the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's safety comes first, and if that's what they end up doing, then that's what we'll do. I want to say I was reading somewhere that there was somebody was asking that was too, and I can't remember if there was a confirmation if that already exists or not. Mm-hmm. I want to say that it's just in the cab, but I'm not 100% positive. I know that there's a kill switch that has to be accessible from outside the car, though.
Yes,
and that's required.
And I believe you see the track. I believe you see the track worker check it as well. One of them, but I do not think that system was activated because I did not see anything come out. We saw, and I mentioned this in the Maximum Driftcast chat that we had going. Also, that was wicked, by the way, that whole chat.
Yeah, that was fun. It
was very fun. We saw when Chris Forsberg pulled it in Texas, I believe. It covers the car. It is very clear when it goes off. I do not think it went off. I don't know if it was pulled or not, but it definitely wasn't activated.
He came into the car, like when he exited out of the car, he came back into the car, tossing his helmet aside and from the passenger side to come back into it. And I want to say that he was trying to make sure that he pulled it. I'm pretty sure he pulled it. This Federico is no joke. He's a pro and he knows exactly what to do in this kind of situation. And I think he was more like really surprised why this fire isn't going.
That could be it.
I pulled it. I know I pulled it. And he went back in and he's yanking on that thing more panically. He's like, why isn't this fire going out? What's going on? You know, he's freaking out. You could see that stress in him. And he's just like, he's thinking, God, he's fine. But his baby is burned really bad.
Yeah, and I had originally thought it was ATF. I was almost 100% sure it was ATF, but I guess we found out now that it was indeed fuel. That control arm, I think is what they're saying, is what was broken, and the wheel shot up and severed the fuel line. So I once again could see another rule change that fuel line placement cannot be anywhere within the wheel compartment, which I figured would be kind of a common sense thing, but we don't know if something poked through, if something sliced in. It's too tough to tell, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we'd have to get a breakdown on that in the future from Federico and understand a lot more, which I'm sure here's the thing. Here's what my takeaway is on this crash, okay? Federico has exemplified himself as a very positive-minded professional.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody, we wouldn't want to wish this kind of situation on nobody. But if there is ever an individual that this was to happen to take in and show just how a professional can handle this, he is the man to do it.
For sure.
He will show people that, yeah, my Ferrari caught on fire. Accidents happen. We will come back. And he is never going to change that smile off his face because he knows that he's still chasing that passion he has. And these things happen. And it just really sucks that it happened this bad, but he's not giving up. And he knows what he's doing. And a lot of people seem to be very ignorant and really researching him as a driver and his history before giving opinions. And this is why the Maximum Driftcast exists. We want to be able to expose people to understanding these drivers on a new level, being able to become a little more familiar with them. And we definitely got that with Federico.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if anybody that's listening to this podcast wants to learn more about him as a driver, take a chance and listen to that interview. And if you haven't figured out who he is already, you will by that time. And you'll understand where I'm coming from when I say that he's going to be back, and he's going to be back to kick ass. I am 100% positive of it. He's going to show what it's like to be a professional in one of the worst situations possible. And many other drivers have too. I'm not saying like this is the first time this happened. It's just that he's got a Ferrari on his debut event, and it caught on fire. You know, coming from Italy, he has a stack of shit that he is going to just. He has that aura about him that he can just knows how he can handle.
Yeah,
this is what I'm saying. The guys have confidence. This guy can handle himself. He will be back, and expect to see this Ferrari for a long time.
Yeah, no, I agree. It looks like they already have body panels back on, so that's definitely a plus. There's a lot of talk going around right now with the track officials. I'm gonna stay away from that. Just because that is not drifting. That's not Formula Drift. That is something completely separate. And that is up to Formula Drift and the sanctioning bodies that were there to take care of that. So either way, the point is Federico is not hurt. The car is salvageable, and everybody has learned a ton of lessons from that situation.
Agreed.
So I'm hoping the best for him in Orlando, and hopefully they can get the car back together by then. But moving on from there, we've got Kristaps versus Alex Hildebrand. The foreign BMW crew.
Yeah. You know, I really like Alex and how he came from Puerto Rico. He went through Pro-Am, and from Pro-Am he went to Pro 2, and then from Pro 2 he went to Pro 1. And so and he did excellent drifting and I'm sorry, Peru's from front.
Right.
I don't know if I said that right the first time, but yeah. And he earned his stripes coming up through the American ladder to get to Pro 1, and I respect that a lot. And he just had the resources to be able to move up through that. Well, what we saw from Alex and what really made his mark as a starting to become like a more famous driver during his time in Pro 2 is that he was a rocket ship in that E46. And then it seems like when he came into Pro 1, we never really 100% got that back, that consistency round after round, attack after attack. That E46 was just knocking people over left and right, battle after battle. He was winning. Coming into Pro 1, it just seemed like there was. It's a different car. This like he got a car built for specifically Pro 1, and there's events where he did amazingly good, but it's just that I was really optimistic about him being a podium placer, being easily in the top 10, possibly even top 5, just from his performance in Pro 2, and we haven't really seen that yet. Now coming into this battle with Blues, it to me, Alex, he's hot. He's on it, but I just feel like we're not seeing him yet. You know what I mean? We're not seeing that level of aggression and attack that he's had in the past. Maybe I don't know. Maybe my memory's a little fuzzy, but anybody correct me if I'm wrong in this. But I just feel like that Alex has more to offer, and I don't know what it is that he hasn't been doing with his car to be able to allow him to do that.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too is I think it could be part of it could be who he was paired up against. We're talking about two drivers that are known for being fast, for being aggressive, and very similar chassis. Those BMWs are known for being grippy and for being able to rocket ship. So he might have been doing that, but when you have somebody who's doing it that much faster, that much better in front of you, it can kind of make your efforts not look as good, I guess. He's up against one of the most aggressive guys in the entire series.
Yeah, I see your point there. But I was watching that very closely. I wish I took more notes in the particulars, but I don't know. I feel like Alex has more on the table that he's just not able to utilize yet.
Yep, fair enough.
I think I see him being a much bigger performer than what we've seen so far. And I really hope that whatever it is, he figures it out so that we can see him just rely on his pure instinct with the car.
Yeah, a lot of cobwebs across the board. And I think that another guy that fell victim to it.
Yeah, I have to agree. And Long Beach is just a tough event really to kind of judge anybody's performance on it because of what it demands. But that being said, those who outperformed in such a crazy environment are remarkable drivers. And we'll get to those drivers here soon, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. So going on from there, we've got...
and on Blues, I really... sorry, I didn't...
No, it's cool.
Drop him. Blues is definitely. I feel like it's the same thing with him. He's in a car and he doesn't seem like it's the same Blues drive. Like he's held back by his car as well. So Blues, they're this is they're amazing. Don't get me wrong, but I'm only making this opinion based on their past performances in this extreme, Pro 1 level. Mm-hmm. That I've seen more from them. And I just we got to wait and see. I think Blues is going to really make that BMW a much more powerful car than a much more competitive car, I should say, than we've seen so far.
Yeah, any more powerful, that carbon fiber Kevlar would just fly off. So
yeah.
So after that, we had Odie versus Dan Briquette.
Oh man, yeah.
I love that car. I love that
Brad,
car.
Dan, and Odie both. They're really, really awesome dudes to talk to. And it just really sucks, what happened. Now, look, I have the utmost respect for both those guys as competitors, and I'm only going to point something out that I caught. And this is just observations from live stream. I wasn't there. But Odie just seemed to have a little bit of a struggle coming into that first initiation to that first clip.
Yeah, it was like a double pull. Long. It was like a double pull on the e-brake, or it was like he was missing a clutch kick, or a clutch was slipping. There was something very strange about it.
And that being said, I feel like that when Dan was following Odie, that Odie, he had a really weird way of trying to come from that touch and go, coming off that touch and go. It seemed like he was offline. Like he caught it just right to not hit the wall hard or whatever he was doing to try to scrub speed, but it slowed down enough to where Dan his car was bobbling to not hit and still try to stay in angle, still try to stay in drift. And so Odie continued, but Odie seemed like he was just a little offline everywhere he went. He was driving like he's supposed to drive. He started going smooth again, but he just felt like a little off all the marks.
Like 3 feet back from the tap or from the touch and go. Yeah.
Right. So, but his driving was smooth. It's just not where it was supposed to be. It's almost like his entire line got shifted 3 feet one direction.
Yeah.
Because of that bobble in that first initiation. Then you have Rad Dan, who is, trying to adjust to all that. So he's got it in his mind being used to, like, at this point I do this, at this point I do that, based on his visual references and how to run the car around the course. And he's trying to follow Odie's line at the same time. So he's having to constantly readjust. So he did a good job following. And then when it came to lead, Dan, man, I feel really bad for him, because that is like one of the most beautiful cars in the entire field. Arguably the most beautiful car in FD. And it just really sucks to see it get torn up like that.
Yeah. Nobody likes seeing Mark IV Supras missing most of their body panels.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm pausing here because I'm really working hard and recalling my head in the run. But yeah, it was just, he wanted to go. I think he felt he had it. Like this was his battle to lose. And he wanted to make it work. He wanted to get that gap on Odie. I don't know. But, it's Long Beach, man. That first corner is just a doozy for everybody. There's some, if I remember correctly, there's some kind of like pavement grade change or something like that. About halfway through that first corner, because that section becomes a parking lot or something like that.
Yeah, it goes from parking lot to road.
Yeah, you can see a line where that pavement change happens there. So it seems like a lot of drivers are just, like, they'll initiate and get the car to get slowed down just enough. And it seems like it goes into a part of the asphalt that slips more. And then they stand on the gas, or maybe it grips more and they're standing on the gas to be able to fight that extra grip to keep the nose from pointing into the tire wall. You'd have to get the driver's input in this, but I know there was something they were battling there halfway through that first initiation, that every driver had to find out their way of dealing with it, and then being able to follow somebody while dealing with that. Long Beach is really demanding. So yeah, I feel bad for Rand Dan. And but we've seen him hit before in Long Beach in Pro 2. No, was it Pro 2? Did they have Pro 2 in Long Beach?
No,
he was in Long Beach before.
Yeah, this isn't his first year. Yeah, but he ran pro last year.
That's right. That's right. He ran pro last year, and yeah, he crashed last year, and he had some damage as well. So it's just Long Beach just doesn't. Dan is he's gonna get it down. He doesn't give up, obviously, and we're looking forward to seeing more from him for sure as the year goes along, because he got that crash in. So
yeah, get it done.
He's all gung ho from here on out.
That's his one for the year. Yeah,
that's his one for the year. So he's got that out of the way. So it's all downhill from here, Dan. You're doing good.
You're good. Yeah, exactly. We kind of touched on this one already, but Dirk Stratton Von Gittin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sucks, but
it was his. It was his. Again, it's just like one of those things that drive. It was his to lose. And Vaughn has showed some self-control. And so much that now he's just on their door instead of on top of their car. And
literally
he dialed it enough to where it looks like it's 100% for everybody else. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Chelsea is, you couldn't have a good pair of drivers for Chelsea to learn from somebody because Chelsea's out of control and Vaughn is out of control, but he learned how to be in control, and now he's passing that knowledge on, kind of thing. So, he has that. He just was on Dirk so hard. I think Dirk just knew he needed to do whatever he could to get away from him, and he was probably hearing that Ford V8 screaming in his head the whole time he was coming around that course. And I don't know. He was doing good, and it just sucks that slightest little tap just took him right out.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens.
He was on fire. Yeah, he was on fire, but Vaughn was definitely putting on maximum pressure. He was not going to let him get away with that win easily.
Well,
the opportunity to win.
They have driven together before. I've seen them tandem at Grid Life, so I think Vaughn knew exactly what he needed to do. And it could have been an intimidation thing too. He went, you know what? I know this kid can slay, so I'm going to get right on his door and do something that quite possibly he's never dealt with before, because you don't see tandem that tight in Pro 2.
You know what? That's big kudos to Dirk for Vaughn to feel that way, because that shows that he has a lot of confidence in his driving.
Yeah.
Because with all the new drivers that came in, Vaughn put on the pressure the most to all the rookies and on their one-on-one battles. And that is because he understands Dirk has the potential. He has the ability, and he's shown it. And we're just barely seeing what Dirk is capable of doing. It's going to be really interesting to see his consistency to show here for the rest of the season. I believe he has it.
Mm-hmm. So past that, what did we get into? Jonathan Castro versus Michael Essa. I'm super curious to see what the engine issue was. It's not like Papadakis to not be able to fix something in time, especially given the amount of time they had. So that must have been something big. Someone told me it was engine related, but I'm really not sure.
I have no idea, honestly. I haven't heard anything about it, so it sucks. It really does, because Castro, his moment of glory in Orlando last year was just we saw something from him that just affected everybody. Even people on live stream were just raving about what they saw with his battle with Dean, and we know he's got it. We know he's got it. And it really sucks for him to miss this first round because of a mechanical failure. I guarantee. And Castro is another one of those guys like Federico who is he just has this extreme, this level of this pure drift appreciation in where he's at. He's very aware of his position right now in Formula Drift and is very humble about it. And sharing that with his friends and family and we're at his home. So it's you see him always having that level of passion, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
And it never minimizes. It's always there, and that professional, passionate for drifting. So I really wish we could have at least heard from him at the event. Maybe Lorette got a chance to talk to him. I don't know why it was just like as if he was never there. And that was what I thought was really weird. And so I really hope that it was nothing too serious, and it'll be as if he never skipped a beat when it comes back to Orlando. Yeah.
And I think I've said this before, but when I show people drifting, what I show them is Castro versus James Dean.
That's a good example.
Yeah. Okay. Here you go. You want to know what this sport's about? This is the epitome of this sport. Literally millimeters away from each other is incredible. So on to the last battle of the top 32. We're through like the vast majority of all of this. Matt Kaufman versus Ken Gushi. So happy to see Matt Kaufman finally come into his own, taking out, just an absolute dominating force that is Ken. It's a real testament to how far this kid has come and what we're going to see from him in the future.
Matt, I've said it before. I've said it many times. Matt has that ability to get insane angle and keep going really fast. It's like you're watching him initiate into the first turn, and he's like almost practically 90 degrees. It seems like, and it's insane how fast he's keeping that car pushing all the way around the course. And on top of that, it's a really good looking car too. I was just like, I saw Matt running, I saw Matt qualifying, and I was just like, he's got to get this. He has it. This is him. He's going to get this round. He's going to place really well. And who took him? I forgot who took him out. And we'll get to that later.
That's the next battle, actually.
So with Matt was just on fire. Like when I made the second half of the thread for the FDLB top 16 chat thread on Maximum Driftcast, the first thing I comment is Matt Kaufman is still on fire. And it's like this guy is I was fingers crossed. Oh, he's got it. He's dialed in. He's got his head in the right place. He's got his car in the right place. nothing can stop him. And I believe that it's he's pushing limits that he didn't know his car had. And I think that's what caught him, because he's pushing so hard to stay as dynamic and to stay a little bit more than everybody else. Stay fat, a little bit more faster, a little bit more angle. I see a lot of similarities in his driving style to JTP.
Yes.
And that type of aggression. So yeah, and Ken Gucci, I've watched Ken Gucci for a long time, along with several other fans who've been watching drifting since the early 2000s, and I don't know. Again, I hate sounding like a broken record, but it just feels like we're not seeing Gucci at 100%.
No,
this is not Gucci at his full wild potential, and I don't know why. I've seen him here's a good example. The year that Dai won the championship, he was up against Gucci in top 32. Gucci blew his freaking doors off, and it was just like he just did not give a crap about his what was it, TC? It was a TC at the time.
Yep.
Cyan TC. And he swapped that thing into angle that I'd never seen before coming out of that bank. And it just threw Dai for a loop, and he ended up just going straight because it was just so much angle that it looked like it was completely unsavable. And he swings it around, hits the clip, goes around the smaller bank. Dai was just so covered in that smoke that he just ended up just straightening out and just going straight through. And just totally caught him off guard. And see, these little things that Ken does, he has an arsenal of weapons that I don't think he's being 100% been able to use yet. And I don't know if it's just because they're still putting more time and effort into this car or what. But I've seen Ken really throw down and throw people for a big loop that they've never seen. They never see it coming. It's almost like, out of the, a ninja jumping down from the trees. And, it's insane how out of nowhere he'll come up with this incredible moves. And I'm just hoping that we're going to see more of Ken pushing to that level this year. Because we didn't see that in Long Beach.
It seems like he was going through the motions. It just seemed like he's like, yeah, I'm here. I've made my appearance. I ran top 32. Bring on the beer. That's kind of what it seemed like.
Yeah. And Matt, moved on, and that was that.
All right, guys. Thanks again for listening to the Pistonhead podcast and part 1 of our Long Beach breakdown. It was awesome to have Bryan on. Part 2 is just as good, if not better. We get into some old rivalries, some crazy action, some conspiracy theories, why I've got an issue with WiseFab, and all that fun stuff. So make sure to check out everything Bryan. There'll be some links down below. And make sure to check out our sponsor for this episode, which is Quick Latch. Awesome latching system. If you guys haven't seen it yet, make sure to check the link below so you can see all the amazing products that they offer. But thanks again for listening, guys. Make sure to look out for part 2 of this. Check out the Pistonhead podcast. You're already listening to it, so you already know every Wednesday it comes out. Pistonhead Productions on YouTube. New videos out on Mondays and Fridays. We just released our channel trailer, which is really cool, as well as last week we had our preview where we're working with Riley Sexsmith for the season. So all that stuff is up on the channel. You can check that out, as well as head over to patreon.com/Pistonhead Productions to get involved with our new build, where you get a chance to win it, as well as decide what it is we're building. So make sure to subscribe, tell your friends about the podcast, and we will catch you next time.